Hello, everybody. Welcome to the LJL officially unofficial broadcast of the spring split of 2021. I will be your host for these first two games. Alex, otherwise known as Lexi, go by Mars Swan on the internet. And I've got someone different that I'm used to. Hello, GreyHart. Welcome to the stream. Not your
And
first rodeo, though.
it is not great to be here. Looking forward to Super Week.
Absolutely. First two games of Super Week for our coverage over here at the LJLOU. And there is a familiar face as always. Nightmare, welcome to the stream.
Hey,
Hello.
it's good to be here. I was just looking outside at the London high rise and the sun slowly crept over. It's a bright day and a great day for League of Legends too.
Beautiful day for League of Legends, staying inside and not going outside, only
That's
looking
my
at our
jam.
computer screens. But our first two games, gentlemen, are going to be Crest Gaming Act facing off against the Fukuoka SoftBank Hawks Gaming, and then we'll cover Crest Gaming Act facing off against V3 Esports. This first game is going to be very important, and I think the first reason for order of business really is something that GreyHart, you brought up to us was going to be standings, as four games have already happened, and for Crest Gaming Act, these games could be important.
I mean, for both of these teams, they're hugely important. For Crest here, if they secure a win, they put a little bit of breathing space between themselves and 7th and 8th. Obviously, the two teams that are going to be dropping off before the playoff run. As for the Hawks, well, this is getting pretty close to a must-win situation at this point. So there's a lot on the line for both of these teams coming into this match.
Yeah, both these teams sitting here, Crest Gaming Act 3 and 5, the Hawks 2 and 6. They really need to find those wins. And Nymera, the Hawks coming into this, we pegged them to be potentially a top 4 team. Looks like we got that one a little wrong.
Oops. Yes, as Stan was saying, must win is becoming increasingly more prevalent for this team. There are 3 game days left in the LJL. We're halfway through this one on the live stream, of course, which means that, between today and tomorrow, there's 1 day left and 2 more games for each participating team to try and pick up some of these pieces. And there are a lot of pieces to pick up for the Hawks.
Yeah, there are a lot of pieces. First things first, though, let's go over and check out how we think Crest Gaming Act are going to do in a head-to-head matchup versus the Hawks, because that is going to be obviously the important part. We've got a lot of unique players. We've got some historic players, and I think let's first off go with one of the more easier parts of this to analyze, and I'll give this over to you, GreyHart, first, if you're willing. And that's going to be Apperman in the top lane facing off against Nap, and these are two of our long-time veteran top laners. We have seen these players battle out for what feels like forever in the OGL.
Yeah, very much a legacy matchup. It certainly looks at the moment like it's going to be going in favor of CGA's top side at the moment, but it's like I said, it's Super Week. So much changes. We've already seen roster changes and the like coming into this match. I'm not expecting to see that here. However, I do think that it's like there's so many different things can happen, and with especially taking away briefly from the top side, looking at the jungle, so many unique picks that we see out of some of these teams. I think that there's not necessarily cheese, but certainly new strats that can come in to try and get one up on your opposition.
The thing for me is the way that Stan says top side, because that also includes the jungler. It also kind of includes the pressure coming in from mid too. So while, yeah, Afman's been a great individual laner, there's a lot more to consider in this matchup.
Yeah, Tussle versus Kassin. Kassin has very much come in as this rookie jungler who will play almost anything. Xin Zhao in a professional setting. That's not Rek'Sai, when no one else is playing her at the moment. Very unique champion pool coming out from this academy top laner who is debuting their rookie split on the LJL and has been definitely a bit hot and cold, Nymera.
Exactly, yeah. So this guy, jungler coming in from the DRX rookie squad over in Korea, and that's behind players like Pyoshik, and Pyoshik has been a player that's been hot and cold in their own right, so maybe picked up some habits from there. Heck, this guy's even been playing the Gragas jungle, which is, of course, a very historic pick, but no one's really had the cojones to pull that out nowadays, because, as you can say with all of these picks, they're early ganking champions that want to impact the map early, give the ability to dive into top lane, stuff like that, and again, play towards a strong top side. But what I love about this team is that they do have the courage to pull out these picks and say, come swing in the early game and roll with the punches.
Absolutely, and roll with the punches we will have in our mid lane, GreyHart. We've got Nahyun, whose champion pool is huge, and we've got Dash's champion pool, who is maybe larger, which is hilarious to say because of just how long he's been playing for.
Yeah.
What are some champions that you're expecting to maybe cast over in the LJL? Like any champion you'd be excited to see.
Honestly, I'm not going to say I have no idea because obviously we've seen these players playing week in, week out. But as you say,
Yeah.
the pools are just so big that at this point, especially with the amount of changes, as I said earlier, we're seeing coming into Super Week, the little bits of tactics that are coming in from the two teams to throw off their opposition. Honestly, I wouldn't even be completely shocked if we, made Nightmare's day and ended up seeing an Ari out of nowhere one of these
Oh,
days.
see, the last time we saw that would have been Ramune playing that versus Burning Core last year in spring. They ended up building Merc Treads and Banshees fell, and
Wasn't
I'm
good.
always a fan of saying that if Ari builds defensive, they've effectively just killed their own champion. You are playing a 4v5, and that was horrible for me.
So no, I'm not legitimately saying I think we'll see that. That was slightly more memey, but I do think there will be surprises. I don't think it's just going to be kind of classic Orianna, Syndra, etc. I think we're going to see something a little bit unusual out of at least one of these two players. That being said, both of these players very much the highlight players for their team in terms of what they can bring to the map. So Dasher, especially, I think he's going to have to thrive and also, bring late game value if this Hawks team, excuse me, has any opportunity of picking up a win here.
I really love that point. We've seen a lot of unique picks out of both these mid laners. Rumble coming out, first Rumble from Nation in the LJL. He's also on the same kind of page as Ace from V3 and has decided to play Set. We've seen Twisted Fate from them. We even saw Seraphine. And over on the other side, Dasher, absolutely. He will pull out something very special. He pulled out Yone versus Zed in the mid lane. That was pretty surprising. And Nymera, is there anything else that these two players could bring out to really capitalize on where we're going with this?
I mean, there's only so much you can really pull out and still like make your team happy because eventually there's a point it's like, oi, please lock in a champion that's good for yourself. It's like there was this apocryphal
Don't do
story.
Dardoch. So don't do a Dardoch, is what you're saying.
Hey, he's been doing alright with himself. It reminds me of this kind of apocryphal story of Faker in season 5, where he played something like 18 champions and won with them more than once. So it wasn't just a one-trick pony thing. He even played and won with Master Yi twice, for God's sake. He was really doing everything. And he was the kind of thing where he's saying, yeah, I will play AP Tomkench mid, but then his coach said, no, you will only do that if you lock it in for yourself, and then you'll be in very big trouble. So I'm looking at these two
the
players
belt
thinking,
will return.
the belt would have returned in style.
Yeah.
Now that's of course a huge matchup today over on the LCK stream too with that 2-1 Damwon Kia game. But
these matchups are more huge. Stay here.
Absolutely. I mean, Nation coming in from that same league, pretty much the same thing, right? Nation's been around the world. Now he's ended up in the LJL. Maybe he'll bring out some spice.
We can only hope. I would love to see more spice coming out of both these mid laners. I don't really know what I'd like to see without both these players getting in trouble. I actually think that's a really fair point. What would I see without getting in trouble? We saw Zillion earlier today, so
yeah,
apparently
Zillion's
Zillion's
like
now on the card.
Maybe, but I wonder if Echo would be like something which is just enough on the edge meta, because I know Dash used to play that, and Nation plays pretty much a bit of everything. So as you were saying.
I think Echo has a place in teams that like need agency early on at the moment. I think it's definitely viable. I don't think it's bringing as much to the late game unless it gets Giga fed, but it's not outside the realms of possibility. Zillion, as you say, it's falling in quite nicely. It's taking the place of things like an Orianna when you're looking for a protect the ADC composition. So if you're going to have yourself a big carry and you want to protect it, then yeah, Zillion's a hell of a choice.
There are multiple options, but gentlemen, we must take it down to the bot lane and give them a little bit of spotlight.
We have to.
We have to because your boy's a support main, so I'm always biased. I'm not biased, ladies and gentlemen, but someone has to be in the bot lane. It's a dirty job, but somebody's got to do it. Milan and Alchemy for Crest Gaming Act are the ones that are looking to do it. And again, Nymera, there's another rookie in the bot lane, but this one's a little different.
Milan has been probably most famous in the LJL so far for using a lot of defensive bullet time ultimates on his Misfortune pick, which he keeps going back to. Misfortune is a pick which they kind of crutch on to give him a good laning phase. Doesn't really have the best laning phase, and as I said, they just kind of sack bot lane and go top lane instead. Alchemy, in fact, Stan was here when we cast the CGA Hawks best of 5 from summer 2020, so that would have been last year in summer, of course. And Alchemy has not really found greener pastures on this new roster of CGA. Of course, he stayed on the same team, but then the roster's changed up quite a lot. This is a lane which has struggled, but then again, on the side of the Hawks, not a lane which is completely popped off. Corporal last year would have been, our third or fourth best support in the region, and has struggled to make that stand up in this split so far, struggling in laning phase. Been put on Rakan duty a lot of the time, one of his favorite picks. Not really found much success with that either. And Zenit has been similarly quite mercurial. So this bot lane could be quite flip-floppy from both these teams.
Yeah, I would definitely argue that Chris Gaming Act's bot lane is typically more standard and kind of fits a bit more with the typical draft format that you'd expect to see. Like, we need a tanky frontliner because we have no tank. Okay, and then Alchemy will be like, I guess I'm on Leona duty or what have you. The Hawks, Chimera, and GreyHart, their drafting has been questionable at times, especially with that Rakan you mentioned earlier, Chimera.
So just adding a bit of context into that, effectively
Yes, absolutely.
the last week of gameplay, we had a game where it was the Hawks versus, was it versus, trying to remember who it was. Anyway, that's not exactly the problem. They had like a Gragas flex pick on red side, holding up until the very last pick, and they knew they were playing against a Camille on the top side, knew that they were playing against a Rel in the bottom side, and they locked in a Rakan to flex this Gragas top
It
lane.
was versus V3.
Versus V3, thank you very much. And we kind of sat there just like, hang on, so you've held this last pick for a comfort pick, but it's not really gotten you anything across the map. It ended up being very hard for the Rakan to do much that game, and you kind of think, well, you kind of did this to yourself.
And they routinely were having these problems, and this is kind of maybe hedging some bets. I saw a little face GreyHart wanting to say hello on the stream for a moment there.
Guest analyst Loki just popping in to say hi. There we go.
Warwick picks.
No, I can't deal with that twice in a week.
True.
I was
So my
infinitely
question.
bereft in that game.
Oh no. My question now to you both is who do you think's going to be taking this matchup? Do we think it's pretty favored for Crest Gaming Act, or do we think the Hawks going to be taking this?
So I know that Stan has a lot to say about my pre-game predictions, and in fairness, if you are part of our LJL
I was
Discord
not
predictions,
even going to call you out on it here.
So,
this is your home. Would I do that to you? Yes, I would.
No, that's where I do it.
Yeah, that's
Hey.
you think you're the only one who gets to break me on stream? No. See, I've been molded by these two too as well as my Swan initialize over here. But I look at this and I was thinking, where CJ are weaker and tend to like straight up lose games is in that bot side. I don't think the Hawks are going to punish that hard enough, even though Zenit has had some pretty crazy games. He had one game on Samira where he went like 14 kills. It's now patched for 11.3, by the way. I think that they don't necessarily have the agency they need to on that bot side of the map. And I think the Hawks will not be able to play too aggressively versus CGA's top side. So unless they've done some big prep coming into this, maybe they have, I think it's going to go CGA's way.
Before GreyHart, you do your prediction. Chimera just mentioned a 14-3 kind of standings. Zenit of the Hawks had that standing when he played against Crest Gaming Act last time on that Samira. So
fair play.
I'm just bringing it up. Their previous matchup, back in week 3, we saw Dasher on that Oriana, and we saw Nahun on that Seraphine. That Seraphine was definitely part of that problem for them. So I believe we were predicting, all three of us predicted GreyHart, Crest Gaming Act to win. And then it didn't quite go the way we expected.
Well, coming into this one, I think it's a really, really interesting matchup. I agree with actually, shockingly, a lot of the points that Alex was making there. But I'd go even one step further in terms of the bot lane. I mean, you just referenced the ADC there, but actually, I think Corporal is actually probably going to be, in my opinion, the most important player in this game. Alex was saying earlier how he's not really showed up. He's, been a little bit left wanting. If he shows up today and we see this Crest Gaming bot lane punished, as they have been by so many other teams, because especially Corporal goes out and does something special, I think that Hawks will take it. My gut instinct, though, is that won't happen, and that's why I'm going to be going for Crest Gaming.
All right, so 2 for Crest Gaming Act. Now I get to mull over. Where was I going to go with this? No, I'm just going to stick with my predictions that I put in our prediction sheet, which is available on our Discord for anybody that wants to join it there. As obviously you can hear all our thoughts over on our podcast as well. Oh, multiple plugs. I'm predicting Crest Gaming Act to win this. I think it would be silly to really imagine that a repeat of the Hawks bot lane where they really turned up. I just can't imagine that that's going to happen. But as we get ready for the final moments, gentlemen, it's good to be back. We're going to be doing all 16 games of Super Week for the people out there. You guys are going to be doing 2 games today, and you're going to be also covering 2 more games tomorrow. That's going to be a lot of League of Legends that we're going to be bringing to everybody out there. Are there any matchups that you guys are excited to maybe just watch or just see the results of?
Legitimately, this one. I think this is a really interesting match in terms of where the standings lie. This could almost entirely put Hawks out of contention if they lose it. And while the top of the table is a little bit more rounded out in terms of who's looking good, I mean, I know there's only 1 game gaps between people, but we're pretty close to knowing, let's say, the first 4 teams that are going through to playoffs. Down on the bottom end, there are the teams that are going to
Everything to
almost
play
certainly
for.
be eliminated from contention soon. So I love this match.
Well, gentlemen, we've just been given word pick and ban phase has come in. So, Nymera, I apparently have no interest in what you have to say. And let's just go straight up to pick and ban phase. Gentlemen, take it away.
Thank you very much, Master Swan. You're not the only one with no interest in what Nymera's saying.
Come on.
Don't worry about it.
Don't do me like this.
Hey, look, I have to, it's one of those weeks. This is now our 5th game we've cast together in the space of 3 days. We'll have done 8 by the time the weekend's over. We're sort of becoming the kindred of League of Legends, never one without the other. But here we go. We're getting ourselves straight to pick and bam. We do see the Udyr, the Lilia, and the Seraphine banned away by CGA. I like the way they're banning the Seraphine away from Nahon. That's very smart. And Camille and Twisted Fate so far banned by the Hawks.
Exactly. The Seraphine is so strong within the LJL because, I mean, the LJL as a region isn't one that typically goes and dives side lanes early. It's not typically one which really plays for strong ganking early games. CJ is basically the only team which does that. Every other team plays for Dragons. They play for Heralds, and that's exactly when Seraphine, when it's flexed into mid lane and gets you the ability to fight pretty strong team fights early into the game, it gives Seraphine so much power. Something else which gives a lot of power is something like Lucian. Nation had 1 game versus Detonation Focus Me where they so nearly took that game out of a lot of solo kills coming in from Nation, who had something like, I don't know, a good 10 kills in that champion too. It's going to be going up against Apamen's Well, of course it won't, different lanes, but the champion's been
it might do, you never know. It's more likely, however, to go against Dasher's Oriana with that one locked in. And just before we see these next picks coming in from Crest Gaming, I would actually really like to hear which game you're most looking forward to seeing this weekend.
So obviously this was actually a pretty big one because, again, there are no teams who have more than a 1-game gap between them and their closest neighbor. We have like a full 1-game will win 1-win column train right from top to bottom, even with the first 4 results of the day coming in. There's that, and also our very last game of the day. We're going to go see that Rel coming in that bot side.
So, fun fact, I had prepared a joke for if this happened. I was honestly, during our chat with Mass One, but just never came up really to say, was going to say, I'd love to see Alchemy play Rel because then we could have Full Metal Alchemy.
Oh no! Oh, that is just wonderful. I hadn't thought about that. I can't believe I hadn't thought about that. Knowing that this is the LJL, knowing we're allowed to make anime references, and we completely missed it.
There you go. Honestly, that's the beauty of preparation. The Lucian now looks almost certain to be in the mid lane as the Kai'Sa is locked in alongside Metal Lady.
Okay, so I look at the Kai'Sa, and Milan didn't have an awesome Kai'Sa game last time they played that champion in the LJL. They often got zoned out quite a bit, and one thing which can zone you out a lot from team fights is the threat of a flash Skarner pull. If that's not going to be used at the very start of the fight, if it's started off instead by something like a Meganar, then Milan's going to play relatively safe. Of course, the Rel will also need to play relatively safe. And if the Hawks lock themselves in a Thresh, well, they won't do that. It's been banned.
Yeah, it's not going to have the opportunity to happen. We've got an interesting change between the bands here because obviously we see the jungle top and a mid laner picked up by the Hawks. CGA, on the other hand, having locked in mid ADC and support. So we're seeing a huge variation between these champion bands. Jungle bands coming out of the Hawks, the Nidalee and the Talia. Crest Gaming have already banned away one support, may well decide to do a second as well, or they could take an ADC away that they don't want to play into Kai'Sa.
And so one of the things
take away the Samira, maybe. There it is. Woo!
Yay!
I'm on fire today.
Yay!
Let's go.
Sarah's gone. I mean, yeah. So Samira's favored combo in the Rel already taken away, but you can still lock in something like an Alistair, and when you've got, of course, a pretty nice engaged setup already, it gives you another angle to start attacking from. Has a decent matchup into the Rel. In fact, that's exactly what they're going to be hovering now. It is kind of the tier list support if you're looking at what's been banned away already.
It is, however, going back to I think it was the first week Rel was released on
Mm.
competitive, we were casting this particular matchup and seeing how Rel was cancelling out the combos from Alistair time and time again. So I'm still not entirely sold on this counter pick myself.
No, the thing is that both of these champions are pretty good at nullifying each other, right?
Mhm.
So if you're gonna pick something like, I don't know, I mean, Xayah is probably the notable pick coming in. That is not what I expected out of the jungle notable picks. Be damned. I've got a Karthus for Kassin.
I mean, honestly, after everything you said about Kassin, why on earth would you expect a notable pick? This is the person who plays Xin Zhao and Rek'Sai. Now they're going to be taking that Karthus as well. Requims will be coming down. We're going to see a Dark Harvest lock-in. That's just completely changed the complexion of this game. The final lock-in will be the Undead General for Nap, as he hopes to give a permanent dirt nap to Apperman.
Okay, so Kassin looking to take Hawks to church with this choral singing from the Karthus. Might be a little bit more morbid than they were expecting. Gonna lock in the Ezreal. That's all right, actually, looking at it, because I look at the Scion, I look at the Kai'Sa, Lucian, Rel. They're all relatively short range, right? I look at that and I think Arcane Shot. Sorry, Mystic Shot, rather. That's going to be really important in terms of just outranging the whole enemy team and giving the Hawks a poke option where they didn't have that before.
I actually really like the way that SHG have rounded this one out. The question is, have they done enough with this draft to give them a chance in the team who are only just above them in the standings? Of course, if SHG pick this one up, both of these teams will be 3 and 6 going into the continuation of Super Week.
Exactly. One thing that we have noticed about a lot of different teams recently, and how some teams have really struggled to get to the backline through something like a Scion. So if you're looking at this Karthus, looking at the Kai'Sa and their Lucian, if Scion just stands there and gets Skarner ulted, he don't really care. He doesn't really mind about that. So I'm looking at what's going to happen with that pick, and then having this Karthus who can, of course, really pop off in his own carry standards. This could work out pretty well for CGA, and I think there's now a lot of emphasis on the likes of Corporal and Tussle, and of course Corporal, that player who you were saying, and you had so much emphasis on them to really make the engages stick.
And this Alistair is something that will enable that potential. I think it's something that's quite exciting. We've seen even this week while casting, as I've mentioned a few times, Alex, we've done it a few times this week, and we've seen an Alistair, and we've seen it flash, headbutt, pulverize, like multiple targets at the same time, and absolutely win team fights. If that happens today, that could be really big news. I really do like the draft from SGA. If we were allowed to change our predictions, which, spoiler, we're not, I'd honestly contemplate it, because I do feel like in terms of the current meta, SGA just fits more. I think there's a risk to playing these off-meta champions like we see CGA doing.
I'm assuming you talk about the Hawks there. God, yes. And the thing is, like, I look at this Skada, and there's definitely a big amount of power on that pick, right? It's been nerfed multiple times since the recent buffs, and having the ability to just walk up to Karth and say, yo, you need to get out of here because you can't really stand and fight. That's really important, particularly when you can run stuff like Phase Rush and you can't just put the wall down and start disengaging.
All right, we're going to be coming into game very shortly. If you're out there in Twitch chat, drop us a message. Let us know who you're going to be supporting or who you think is winning this game. Do remember to check us out on various socials. I believe it's LJL Unofficial on Twitter. I'm at GreyHart99. I believe that one is at Masswap, but I apologize if I've got that wrong. And I know for a fact that you're at Naimi Area. Yeah, go and follow Mr. Hopgood.
Oh no, this is, see, the thing is, I've had my name mispronounced so much, and I know it's completely willingly so, but the funniest thing is that's probably not the worst one I've ever heard, and that one's actually intentional, whereas the one that was the worst was completely just off the cuff, and I'm sat there like,
is the worst one still from Chazmaster?
Absolutely. I'm just like, welcome to the Nimmer era. I'm like, that's just fantastic.
Maybe he was saying it was the Nymera era.
That's if only he knew how true he was, you know. After picking up the LJL reigns, nothing could stop me, honestly.
That's absolutely what it is. All right, we've got a great game on our hands. Just waiting for these two teams to get onto the Rift so we can bring you all of the action. I'm certainly going to be paying a lot of attention to Alchemy and to Corporal, seeing which of these two supports can bring the most to their team. We've also touched on the fact that top side between Nap and Cassin and Apperman and Tussle will be crucial to how the game ends up going. But only if you were allowed to swap your prediction, Nymera, would you?
No, I don't think I would. I mean, I look at CGA and I think that I think that the Skarner has enough counterplay to it. I think it's a lot closer and a lot more in favor than to the Hawks than I would have thought coming into this game, but it's not like you've got the huge team fighting advantage that they had in their very last matchup when, for instance, that they did have that rumble in the mid lane versus that Senna backline, and suddenly CJ were like, okay, yeah, actually we kind of found our own version to the Senna counter. They played it out really well in that game. I look at this one and I think, all right, sure, okay, Gnar can do all right versus the Scion. Skarner can threaten the backline, but trying to get through that Scion, even in that match where he's going to be held down a tiny bit, is probably not enough. It puts a lot of pressure onto Corporal, as you were saying, and I think that CGA are going to be more than happy to play around that because they have tried to outplay more often than not, and they've succeeded a decent amount of the time.
I guess we'll see if you're right. I personally, and also looking at our notes, also see that our host agrees that I personally think the Hawks have just outdrafted CGA on this one. We'll see if that's enough to pick them up the win against some of their nearest rivals. Last one, I can see you out there in Twitch chat. Drop us a message. Let us know whether you'd be changing that prediction if you had the opportunity to or not, because I'm legitimately very interested. We are, of course, going to see the Dark Harvest on the carpet, so I've got to keep an eye out on those Requiems raining down and those stacks being picked up.
Exactly. Also, importantly, noting this mid lane match, and we said we could have seen so many different picks out of these champions. It ended up being somewhat standard. Nation has gotten himself into this is actually really fun for Nation. Of course, he's played this champion a decent amount, solo killed the likes of Arya over on DFM, but picking up the Lucian and having Kassin going over towards the mage duty from the jungle, of course you can do that with your Talia, but Karthus has been in and around the meta for a decent amount of time, gives Nation a better draft to kind of put out that AD physical damage in this team without really hamstringing CGA's roster.
Okay, we have got ourselves a blue buff start for both of these junglers. We'll keep an eye towards their pathing. Not expecting to see any vertical jungle coming out just at the moment. Tussle, of course, is going to have to play around these spires a little bit, become exceptionally important, especially when we get towards dragons.
So one of the things that is quite important about this Karthus versus Skarner clear is that Karthus does still have a relatively fast clear. It's just not as insane as it was beforehand, particularly because some of the changes that they had to his, particularly his Q damage and all the other stuff means that it's just a little bit more temperamental on the mana pool. You can see he's right down at the lower end of his mana bar right now. And okay, Corporal failing to cancel that combo, gonna lose a bit of HP between the two of them because that 2-man crash down does decent damage.
Yeah, perfect start, knowing, of course, that Headbutt Pulverize isn't going to have the opportunity to have any kind of cancellation, as it's just level 1 Alistair at this moment. Nice start coming out of the CGA bot lane.
But you can't stop Pulv. This is what you do on Alistair. You just Pulv them out of the crashdown. Stood together, you know that the chance is there for the 2-man crashdown. But doesn't end up counterplaying that. Now they're going to be pushed in a little bit, lose themselves. I mean, one of their pots on Alistair, which is kind of awkward, I suppose, but it's not the biggest thing in the world. What it does mean, though, is that if we've got these junglers meeting up towards bot lane, it would have been probably a scuttle advantage towards the Karthus. And the thing is that Karthus always wants to be playing towards his strong lanes, and having strong early lane in his bot lane may be against the head, and then having the Lucian, which you kind of assume is going to be ahead, means that this Karthus isn't really going to be under threat on these scuttles where he can start losing out a little bit.
That's going to happen on the bot side for sure, because with just a couple of seconds until the spawn, there is complete domination on the bot side of the map for CGA as they take one scuttle. Skarner's up on the top side of the rift. He's just clearing out Kruggies at the moment. Might be able to rotate over to the scuttle shortly, as he has got the top lane prio from the Gnar to help him out.
So, Kassin, what's he doing now? Got himself the bot lane scuttle, had his full clear, and just going to make sure that he's just scouting out, seeing what's happening with that jungle clear, because you expect that to be a full clear. Sometimes it's worth just going and checking for yourself. Nation, though, knowing that kind of the junglers all off doing their own business, says, all right, okay, isolated Lucian versus Orianna, I'll take that, and I'll take a good trade with it.
Yeah, the Gunslinger doing pretty well there, finding the piercing light straight through the opposition. Dasher in a little bit of trouble, has got Tussle lurking on the side. Tries to maybe find a gank towards one of these two ADCs, and it is the fact it's a 2 ADC composition that makes Max Swan not want to bet against SHG. Well, bad news for him because he already did, but if you were able to change the position, I think he would.
Okay, well, of course, this is the beauty of being able to change your opinion after
No, we're not allowing that.
No, I know that, right? If we did post-draft predictions, things might be changed, and Affamend really taking it to nap on this top side. No, running down this matchup, oof.
Wow, if that boomerang had connected right at the last second, potentially we could have seen first blood coming in. Nap, of course, did still have both summoners available. May need to use the teleport to get back into lane.
Dasher has not yet done the same. Nation clearing out the wave. That's why he's happy to take that command attack distance. This is all right. Okay, going to clear out the wave. I have my own teleport to use. 10 CS up in lane, similar advantages to what Afferman has over Nap in that top side. And Afferman is of course, this would have been one of the marquee top lane matchups of 2020, having Afferman on the Sengoku lineup and then Nap still on this roster. These two were both really big components rather of those two teams. Afferman has often been the player where if he gets a good solo matchup, he can start running away with the game, whereas Nap is the person who often turns up to the mid and late game team fights and has a real impact just disrupting the backline.
Justin looking potentially for our first gank of the game. Of course, then it is going to have the Arcane Shift to get out to safety should they want to. We'll see if the Wall of Slow comes down. Flash away from Zenit. Sorry, that was Arcane Shift away from Zenit. As a result, does have the Flash. Still takes one late waste to the, I was going to say to the face, but actually it was to the legs because it's put underneath him. And as a result, just going to be down on the E for a little while. Meanwhile, the Culling's thrown out to Dasher, who does not have ultimate available to try and counterplay this. He's going very nicely in the mid lane with that 8 CS advantage for CGA's Naya.
So this is exactly what you want to do as your solo lane Lucian. You proc the press the attack to get the extra exposure damage, hit the W, which gives you the move speed if you damage that champion hit by that afterwards, and then that means that when you really are gunning them down with your ultimate, the culling, it gives you the extra move speed to get the extra shots on target. Now Dasher has to sit on pretty low HP for the rest of this phase of the lane, maybe even has to burn the teleport because of that play coming out of Nation.
Speaking of teleports, earlier on we saw Apperman finding the recall on the back of Nap's teleport. Didn't actually burn the teleport themselves. So coming up towards this Mountain Dragon, that is the teleport advantage on top side. This could mean that SHG have all the pro they need to be able to take away this crucial objective.
And you can see Karthus on top side, Kaiser and Rel are recalling. Maybe that gives a chance for Alchemy to have an ability to exert some pressure on the map, maybe get towards mid lane as Kaiser is returning towards bot side. What this does mean, of course, is you're right, it is going to be the Dragon taken by the Hawks more likely than not. It's important because, again, Gnar does have some relevant tanky stats, and that will start buffing them up. Nation going to be handed over blue buff on the other side, and as a mid laner, I respect that decision from CJ. Give up Dragon, get blue buff for your mid laner.
As a jungler, I'm thinking, what are you doing, Cassin? Come on, you need that mana pool for your quicker clear.
Hang on, yeah, that's not the biggest mana pool for Cassin right now, you are right.
But even so, Dragon is, of course, going over to SHG, find themselves a small objective win. They've got a 100 gold lead just past 7 minutes, and they've lost that 100 gold lead as some minions are picked up by Lucian.
Hey, I'd take a 100 gold lead for myself in real life. I'm there like, yeah, I'll give myself 100 gold. That seems nice. Not a currency we use anymore, but gold's relatively valuable. I'll take that one. And where's
100
Nathan?
gold what exactly? Like 100 gold chocolate coins? Or
I
I'd take that
Can I
as well, to be honest.
100 golden skyscrapers? That sounds like a valuable thing I could do.
No. Oh, you're saying skyscrapers reminded me of the terrible film with The Rock in it.
Oh, yeah.
Do yourselves a favor, don't watch that one.
Do yourselves a favor. Whenever we start talking about movies, you can just go take a hike very briefly. Kind of tells you the state of the game because, you know, I was talking about the LJL. We're a team which doesn't really go gank early lanes and stuff like that. And in this game, you're probably not looking for that, right? Because you've got a Rel, which is kind of hard to kill. We do have the level 6 from Skarner. That's a really important point. We don't have QSSs in from anyone yet. There might be one of those coming in from Nation. Is that exactly as I say, that has picked it up in base, teleport back to lane. So now Dussel's like, yo, wow, I'm level 6, okay, can't gank mid, okay, right. And we're waiting until the next Dragon fight, the next Herald fight is probably an important thing too, and that may be where these teams really come to a head.
See that QSS coming big now, dashing away now and going towards the safety of the support that's waiting up top side. Alchemy might be able to turn this one around. Looks for the crash down. Will be able to find the stun. Requiem comes in. Tussle goes low, goes dead. Karthus gets the first kill, but Alchemy is going to die on the response trade as we see Zenit showing up, giving that kill over to Dasher. But now it's Apperman who's caught out in an awkward place. The unstoppable onslaught will throw him away, but Gnar jumps straight back in, finds the Mega Gnar into the wall. Zenit finds the kill on the back of the shockwave. It's going to be an absolute deletion of the opposition, as it is going to be the Hawks who come out on top, find themselves a 1k gold lead at 9 minutes.
Massive turnaround. Apperman caught out, but he still has flash, and he's still a damn Mega Gnar. Gets the 3-man slam into the wall, followed up by Corporal, gets the flash combo. Sure, Kassin flashes out from the shockwave that comes out as this 3-piece wombo from the Hawks, but it doesn't matter. The extra shots come through. Zenit's at the fight before Milan is as well, and it goes to pieces for CJ. How does it start out? Of course, Tussle's looking here saying, all right, okay, maybe we can try and force that QSS, try and get something out. And Alchemy is sat here without ultimate, does get the Aftershock, but Zenit's at the fight before Milan is. That's a very important thing. We don't have the AD carry, which has the killer instinct, to be able to join these fights more effectively, and that really does show up in these DPS numbers. We get to see Zenit putting out damage. Imagine, say, if Apama was being wailed on by a Kai'Sa there. Might have been a very different fight. Goes in, actually ends up being one auto attack away from death. Now the Hawks have themselves an early lead to play around, and probably a Herald going with it.
That seems exceptionally likely. I mean, watching that replay there, it was clear just how quick responding the Hawks were to find themselves minor advantages in those fights. Gnar arrives before Sion, despite the unstoppable onslaught. Ezreal and Alistar. Okay, the Alistar arrived slightly after the Rel, but the fact that Ezreal is there and Kai'Sa isn't, as you quite rightly pointed out there, Nightmare, that's the one that completely swings that fight, alongside a massive Flash Gnar and a terrific 3-man Shockwave.
Yeah, so I mean, if we're just keeping track on, all right, what are the players that we want to step up? We want Nathan to, okay, actually, Nathan had a really good combo there, by the way. He ended up, again, kiting out Tussle, being able to combo it with Alchemy to say, all right, I'm going to start landing that culling to its full value as things go on very shortly. And he does get a good combo, and then it's like, well, okay, the whole team of CJ just kind of overcommits to that one.
One really massive thing I feel to point out here is on the back of picking up that kill and having a near 20 CS advantage, Ezreal completed the Essence Reaver and has already got the tier stacking. You look over to Kai'Sa and really not even that close to completing the mythic item and back in lane, so he's going to be massively punished in this phase, you'd expect.
And I know we kind of say that Milan and Alchemy often lose out in the laning phase. This has been a relatively uneventful lane. This is not even one where they've been poked out too heavily, and they're still, 15 to 20 CS behind. And after that fight, things are a little bit awkward now. Of course, Lucian has himself the Sheen, and he'll still be trading well into this mid lane, but he's had to stop off to the QSS. So the real primary damage threat in this game right now has really been handed over from Lucian to that Ezreal, and that's very unfortunate for CGA, because they'd really like to keep that Ezreal down.
And I think two things have handed that over. Well, three things actually have handed that over as well. But we'll come back to that in a moment because Tussle might be looking to try and find a pick with the Impale. Karthus is potentially going to come down and see if this 3v3 starts a brewing. Cassin is
Look at these mystic
out
shots
by the vision. Tussle just waiting to see if they can get in and on the action. Do you have the flash Impale available? They're not going to opt into it just yet. I think they know Cassin is lurking. They're not going to risk anything. But yes. Yeah, so basically we're looking at the QSS pickup. I mean, that's 1,300 gold that could have been put into some significant damaging items, which essentially is money wasted if you want damage on Neon, which now he doesn't have. Then you see the fact that he's actually down nearly 20 CS to the Orianna. Then you see a kill on the Ezreal and the completed item. Yeah, I mean, this isn't even close between which of these two champions is packing more of a punch. And with Second Dragon having spawned yet again, it does look like SHD are the first ones there.
And one of the things about this Lucian and AD carries in solo lanes in general is that often they're used to bullying out the early game, getting themselves an XP and gold advantage. Now Nation doesn't have that platform to really stand on too. He's been comboing well. I'm sure he'll have good damage numbers. We do have this dragon coming up, and that'll be important to see if CGA do Wilkins can compete around it. Oh, 3-man True Shot Barrage. Guess the poke started strong.
Crucially, Sion has teleport. Gnar does not. Karthus is going to pick up the dragon. We see the teleport coming through from Nap to join the fight. Impale lands onto Alchemy, who has to step themselves away on the Rel. That's going to be a knock-up coming down straight away onto Tussle, but it's going to be a good amount of damage. Then it finds the kill before eventually being killed off themselves by the Karthus. So 1-for-1, but Dragon does go over to CGA.
Ouch, okay. I thought that CJ might have kind of killed the Golden Goose there with that fight, because they had Nation dashing off to one side, chasing after Corporal, and then they didn't really start, like coordinating their advance towards the Hawks. I thought there was a turnaround coming. It didn't really land from the Hawks. I'm sure we'll see a replay of that. Importantly, we see Karthus pick up a second kill. That's going to be another Dark Harvest stack. More gold into the pocket, and Karthus is a champion that can carry from the jungle. We've seen that a lot from Talia's recently. It's still patch 11.3. Not quite the same on the jungle XP changes coming in on 11.4. And he picks up his Mythic at 14 minutes into the game. Good time for this Karthus.
And a bad time for the Skarner as well, because on the back of all of the various rotations that we saw going down, the Herald doesn't get summoned until after the 14-minute mark. No turret plating is going to be gained, so that's a real loss for Tussle and potentially for Dasher, who could have got an extra 3 turret plates to their name.
Could have done, but, well, guess no crying over spilt milk or broken architecture, I suppose.
Alistair would cry over spilt milk?
Who knows? You can't milk those. This is what he's been telling you all along. He physically cannot cry over spilt milk because there is no milk.
But why does it have to be his? Why can't he? Oh, anyway. Moving on, Cassin's looking for a top lane gank. We're not seeing a huge amount of ganks in this game so far. Appleman is not going to walk into the wall of slows and jump straight out to safety in Mega R4.
It's the wall of mild inconvenience from Sin. Not really much painful about that. It's clearing out vision. I guess one of the big turnaround factors from this game is that, okay, all right, CJ, they don't necessarily have the lanes winning in the ways that they want to. Sion's still relevant, and importantly, this Karthus still relevant. You land, what, 2 Qs and an ult onto someone like Orianna, or of course the Ezreal too, and suddenly the fights look very, very different because we were talking about, okay, when Ezreal was locked in, that gave the Hawks a poke option that they didn't previously have. It gave them a range advantage that they didn't necessarily have before that point. These arcane, man, I keep getting that right. The Mystic shots, it's the arcane shift. That's the one. There are just way too many different terms for this. Well, okay, no Ezreal involved this one. Looks like it's gonna be a turret dive. Looks like Nap's in trouble.
Tussle is 100% kill participation, wants to get more. It's going to be the turret that is the first focus. Flash away from Nap means that Tussle won't be securing any extra kills this time. 3 players in the game with 100% kill participation for their team. Crucially, the Karthus, who has both of the kills for his team and that completed mythic, as you said, Nightmare. Over on the other side, yes, sorry, Tussle doesn't have 100% kill participation. It's Dasher at 1-0-3 who's been on point with the shockwaves. But even more importantly for me, Corporal, I said they had to show up in this game. They have, and they've shown up at the right time every time. 0-0-4 on Alistair.
And again, this is important for the Ezreal. It's important for the Alistair too, right? I mean, you've got the Kai'Sa, you've got the Rel, you got yourself that Lucian, and to a lesser extent the Sion too. They're short range. You can get the headbutt pulve combos in pretty effectively from this support, and that's really important because that's going to be great at kind of being, like we saw in that Herald fight, kind of the gateway, the bridge between various parts of the wombo, allowing you to set up for the shockwave if your Q's are like a second off cooldown, or the Maganar or something like that. Corporal getting himself into this game early and showing, showing kind of proof of what the combo should be. Very important for the Hawks.
Over on the left, the eagle-eyed of you, so that's not Alex, he's slightly more bat-eyed, will have noticed a couple of crucial upgrades coming in for CGA leading up towards the 17-minute mark. We saw the mythic picked up for Sion, and also we saw the upgrade on, I believe it was the Acathian Rain for Milan.
So when you do get yourself, well, normally you stop off for a Dirk actually before you finish off your mythic item because of this reason, right? It allows you to get the Acathian Rain, that Q upgrade. Of course, this is also not 11.4. Kai'Sa still at full strength, I believe, coming into this. But yes, does have the Q upgrade now, which means that you're quite happy to just wave clear as this Kai'Sa. But the problem is, now as Ezreal has got solo lane farm, you're hanging out currently with Lucian in the same lane, which is a bit awkward for CJ, whereas this Ezreal continues to get more gold for themselves.
It's a bit awkward, but at least it happens on the back of a Herald being picked up for CGA. They are still 3,500 gold down, though, as we get close to 18 minutes. The third dragon of the game will spawn. It would be a second for each of these teams. Of course, we have now got to a point where we're starting looking towards the soul. It is an Infernal Rift, so it would be a crucial one for either of these teams to pick up. Oh, Shockwave lands on for 2, and Dasher maybe just trying to delay this Herald push, trying to zone away CGA, and seems to have been successful.
I think it will be because now, I mean, Milan taking that True Shot Barrage to the back too means that the poke has been strong enough from CGA and the tower has been defended that the Hawks have themselves, well, I mean, they had themselves a massive HP advantage and CGA, all right, I'm safe, I'm not messing with that. I'm just going to walk away and not contest.
Saves the turret, claims the dragon, all around a win, and Dasher yet again proving why they're one of the most valuable people in this Hawks lineup.
Dasher has been a player as well that really has felt like they've been a successful player in not so successful teams. They've been a little bit elo held. I mean, Dasher was the player that came in for the Hawks when, of course, Unsold Stuff Gaming left in 2020. They were replaced by the Hawks in the LJL, and this was a team that immediately had their first split and they finished dead last, and it was really awkward. Dasher was playing top lane. They made room for Ramone, one of those old legends of the LJL in the mid lane, and they didn't find the results they wanted to. Dasher switched back to mid lane in the summer and did a lot better in that team. That's worth noting. But having a team that really does push towards the upper end of the standings is something that Dasher has wanted once again for quite a while, and he's struggling to find at this split. Wins like this, though, make things turn around pretty quickly, because again, the table is very, very tight in the LJL right now.
God, I wish we could have a team just filled with names of Santa's reindeer. That'd be fantastic. Let's make that happen.
And Blitzen gets the kit. Oh, okay, right.
No, I'm not sure about Blitzen, but Blitzcrank down there, you can see it is favoured right now towards SHG with an 86% chance of a win rate from this current position. It goes, of course, against all of our predictions. However, having looked at the draft, it's not something that surprises me at all.
At the end of the day, I mean, it's still like a 4,000 gold lead coming out from the Hawks at 20 minutes. That is a significant gold lead. We're looking at Ezreal with an advantage, and Zenit is a player that has played a lot of Samira in comps where you think, all right, Samira into Sion, you're not really going to have much of a fun time. This time, the Ezreal, though, coming out with the Essence Reaver build, going to get the mana. I'm trying to see what his Mythic's going to be, of course. With this build, when you stop off for the Muramana transformation, you're more likely going to be looking towards the Duskblade, yeah, because it gives you the ability to get just so much ability haste because of the Mythic Passage coming out from the Duskblade. He's going to have already, 20 coming in from the 2 first items and then 20 from the boots too. He's going to be sat up at 60 already. He's just going to be absolutely chucking out skill shots.
Which is exactly what the Ez will want to do. That is going to be one of the skill shots with the ultimate thrown out. Not going to have quite such a quick cooldown on that one. Again, it's just a fight over vision. Of course, the Baron has now spawned. Most of the outer turrets on the map have been taken. We're well into the mid game. And again, it is the lead over to SHG. They're looking good, but they haven't been quite as dominant in the last few minutes as perhaps they were during early.
No, but the thing is that you can see Dasher throwing out the ultimate time and time again, looking for poke. It's just keeping CJ on the back foot, saying, you're looking for engage? No, you're not anymore. I'm just going to get the right HP off of the right members and say, if you're going to engage, you're going to die on the intro to that fight. And if you then flub the fight, a champion like Azrael can clean it up so very, very effectively. This is while, of course, now the Baron is in play. It's not something which is going to be started up too soon, I would imagine. But, I mean, the Hawks are just pretty happy now, sliding into a comfortable advantage. Again, the problem is that you do have a lead on this. Karthus got a level lead, got a CS lead too, and building up towards the Void Staff second. They're going to be a relevant damage threat, but they're still happy with whether Ezreal is in the game, and the fact that this Lucian isn't ahead is important for them too.
Literally the only lead as well that CGA have, as we see the aggression, the flash from Tarsal catching on to Gassin, and that is going to be a dead Karthus trying to put down the damage, throwing down the Requiem. Alchemy caught underneath turret is going to die, but we are seeing the turnaround as the kill comes over Karthus. Kill comes over to the Rel as well. She dies underneath that turret, but still it's a 3 versus 2. Aggression comes through from the Scion, the double tap, the flash forward. It's going to mean the death of Neon, as they're not able to find the damage onto either Zenit or onto Corporal. Nap will die as well. It will eventually be an ace going over to SHG under their own turret.
Oh, Nap and Nation think they see and think they can thread the eye of the needle, trying to get a combo onto Zenit. They force out that arcane shift at the end of the fight, try and go back into it, and it's ended up as disaster. What happens here? Kassin is the member which is going to be focused down from CJ. The thing about the Karthus, though, if you're going to bring him in with the Scunner, is that he's going to get a huge amount of DPS just down in his passive. That's why they end up getting that first kill of the fight. Importantly, Milan dies with Flash, with Ultimate, 80 carry down. The other one, Zenit, has this Conqueror stack. This is the important moment. Uses that defensive ability, but then Corporal comes to the absolute rescue. Huge play out of the Alistair, saving the 80 carry, saving the whole fight.
That was one of the weirdest fights for me as well, because that wasn't just a 5v5 where one team was stronger. It was essentially a 5v6. I was counting there. 6 turret shots in that fight that helped out SHG. Like, I get that you've kind of been forced into taking the fight in that position because where the Impale put Cass in and where his Defile was. But even so, maybe just don't take the fight. Like, accept that that's a lost cause. And as a result, you're 6,000 gold down. You're giving over more advantages to SHG. We've now got a 6-1 Ezreal. A potential 3rd Dragon coming up now for the Hawks as well. Oh, man, things just went from bad to worse for CGA.
Absolutely. This is the Cyrilda's Grudge coming in 3rd from the Ezreal 2. He feels like, actually, screw it. Don't need myself the mythic item. Get that percentage armor penetration. Also gives you the slow on abilities. It's kind of like the Iceborne Gauntlet for Ezreal in terms of how it fits into the build previously, of course. But then it just also fits the place of a former Last Whisper. Really important for Zenit. Means that the Scion is going to be much less tanky now in front of this. And if you get hit by a stray Q from the Ezreal, suddenly you could get caught out of position. Again, much like that old Iceborne.
Tussle, of course, doesn't have the flash available anymore as a result of using it in that last play that went so dramatically well for the Hawks. Baron, of course, is up now. It's become a little bit of a vision game around that objective.
I mean, importantly, I suppose we're waiting for what's going to happen with that vision, what's happening with the side lanes, because it's important that, of course, I mean, Milan has not really managed to have the team fights that we'd like them to have. On the Xayah and stuff like that, they've had some pretty okay late games. On the Kaiser, and I think the one game we've seen from them, kind of not really meeting up to what they need to do. In that last fight, like I said again, dying with ult and flash up when it did get so close, that's a heartbreaker for CGA because they're a team which, again, we're coming in the favorites. They're only one win ahead of the Hawks. Hawks will tie up CGA, not be tied for last, bring CGA down to their level and kind of put themselves a leg up in this must-win scenario for them. And having team fights like that, which could have changed the game for CGA, will be very painful for them in review.
Gotta say though, I'm starting to really agree with Blitzbot that was saying there's such a high percent chance of win for SHG here. I'm certainly agreeing with that, but I'm also thinking back to the notes you so kindly provided with me with Nymera, where it was talking about how Dasher sometimes struggles to bring early authority into the late game. We're gonna need to see some crucial shockwaves. We're gonna need to see Zenit continue to stand up. Over on the other side, what needs to change for CGA to have a chance? Honestly, Milan's got to not int it. Like, the last two fights just been a complete non-factor.
It has been, and that's really important because Kaiser is meant to be the champion which kind of pops into the fight and starts popping off from that point. If you can get Zenit or Dasher down at the start of the fight, things look pretty okay for CJ. Still, I think there are ways you can play around that. But now the problem is you don't have a QSS on your Kaiser. Skarner is still trying to be a real nuisance in the front line. So Milan does have to be pretty respectful. Has to be respectful of the Alistar whenever they've got combo up too. But yeah, I mean, it just feels like Milan needs to get himself into the fight. That'll be the turning point of this game.
Speaking of real nuisances, as this Baron is started up and a crucial moment comes, I've got a dog just kind of pouring at my leg going, you've not paid attention to me for a whole 10 minutes. I've got to pay attention to what's going on around this Baron because Baron is already down to 3,000 health.
Alchemy.
In goes Alchemy, gets bopped out, but this allows Nap an opportunity to get close. The Rec Room is going to come down, but the Carthus isn't even close to potential smite seal. It's not coming down to that because the Baron is resetting and the fight has begun in earnest. Alchemy is going to die to Oriana, but Milan shows up, doesn't int it, kills off Skarner. Neon finds the kill onto Alistar. Appleman's caught between a rock and a hard place as Cassin manages to get so much damage down with the Deval. Milan finds one, finds two, might be able to find another as Zenit has to arcane shift out to safety. It's going to be an absolute routing at Baron Pit. CGA come up on top.
Milan gets into the fight. Kaiser gets some damage down. Dasher forced out. Zenit on the awkward end of the fight. Now CGA say thank you for the leash. Baron is decimated by CGA.
What a turnaround. All of a sudden, a near 6,000 gold lead has become less than 3,000. Milan has arrived on the Rift at last.
And it's in the LJL, fortunately not over in Italy, I suppose. Yeah, cool, right, cool, nice. And we've got ourselves Corporal right in this front line, trying to get things working. Actually, really well played from Alchemy to get a 3-man attract, repel, stun across the team there. Gets Corporal down once more. Tussle does pop the ult, but then dies pretty awkwardly after that point. Doesn't manage to get one of these AD carries into the team. And Cassin, all the meanwhile, has been zoning off Apperman, making sure Zenit's kind of down very low too. Huge turnaround from CGA, turning the story of this game right now.
Alex, why do both of these teams like to play in a 6v5 situation? CGA going into a fight underneath a turret. SHG had the Baron raining down on them, spitting acid for pretty much the entirety of that fight onto their health bars, just that were being depleted moment by moment. And of course, it leads to CGA picking up that win. Crucially, however, we are less than a minute away from a Dragon, which could secure Infernal Rift for SHG.
Yeah, and you know what? The most important thing I gained out of that last conversation is the fact that now I just need a mixtape Baron skin where he's just spitting hot fire, just spitting acid.
I think Captain Flower should get to be the voice of Baron. That's all I'm saying.
Well, okay, maybe yourself could be in contention for that with some of the team fights coming in. I got Corporal, Zenit, the whole crew here in the mid lane. Hex Flash charged up, but was on vision from Alchemy. And Tussle, very, very fast, has the ultimate, but of course has no flash, and that'll be important because we have ourselves that Infernal Rift and an Infernal Soul point for the Hawks right now.
Two crucial things. One, of course, is this Dragon which is coming up, but also this is wasting Baron-empowered time on CGA. They are losing out on power play gold they could be finding onto some of these turrets, but crucially, they must take this Dragon, otherwise they give such a big boost. It's being shredded through so quickly, but Tussle's going to be in smite range. He's not going to be able to take it away. The Dragon goes over to CGA, and now they try to take the fight as well. Shockwave is good. Corporal getting a chunk down, but he's still alive for long enough to find a couple of kills. Milan dashes straight in with a killer instinct, but gets killed off by the Ezreal. Zenit still firing down the Mystic shots. Will have the Arcane Shift available, wants to step forward, try and take out Nat, manages to land the Essence, but isn't able to tag it to get the extra health. Neon now is trying to go aggressive, trying to do something, but the fight and was lost, even though the Dragon was secured by CGA.
I mean, it's still, what, a 3 for 2 on the side of CGA, all things said and done.
Wow.
This is still pretty okay for them. Alchemy, once again, gets a big engage. Zenit is forced out, doesn't get to hit the correct members of the team. Sure, you're DPSing down the Rel, you're DPSing down the Scion. That's kind of not who you want to be hitting. Who you want to be hitting is the Kai'Sa, who jumped straight into the Maganar. And Milan, again, kind of throws away that team fight. You didn't need to do that. Doesn't gain you anything. Maybe would have had the chance of the hero kill onto the Ezreal, but it doesn't end up that way or anything close to it. At least CGA won the fight beforehand, because then at least, of course, the Baron was already down. That could have been pretty awkward for CGA, giving up that kill on the AD carry.
You gotta feel like greedy eyes came in on Milan there, trying to pick up that 700 gold bounty that Ezreal has hanging around their neck. However, it wasn't to be, and right now you certainly cannot do that, Milan. Even though I will say, shown up much more in those last couple of fights than in the entirety of the game before that. We are more than 30 minutes into what has been an epic game already. The gold lead is down to a mere 1,000 now, as SHG seem to have thrown away their advantage.
They have done a little bit. A lot of it, of course, has been CGA finding their own fights into the game. 3-level advantage into the jungle is certainly helping CGA as it stands, though. Kassin, very relevant.
Tarsal finds Alchemy just, he tries to find the crash down, and that's a free kill going over to SHG. Now they'll have an extra man power play, but Lucian's pushing hard up in the top lane. Surely they need to respond to this.
So this is not the most egregious error we've ever seen from Alchemy, but we have had communication. Well, so we've had some, complaints in the past. Okay, it's a form of communication, sure. That Alchemy is kind of like, do you remember a player called Hachani back in Korea? He was this Korean support who ended up winning back in Season 4 summer. And even though he was one of the best supports in the world, would just occasionally walk into Fog of War and just die. That's exactly what Alchemy does there. Fights over vision. Doesn't understand that that's exactly where Skarner wants to be playing around and gets picked off for the attempt. Alchemy's had some great team fight engages. That is another one against his run of play in this game, though.
And perhaps that percentage would have been even lower had it not been for that pick-off that we just saw. There's still a 59% chance, but that's considerably worse than what was, I believe, the 85% chance that Blitz was showing us earlier. The stats don't lie. This is definitely something of a tailing off from SHG in these last few minutes.
It is, and I think a lot of that's coming from Kassin versus Tussle and Milan versus Zenit not being so uneven as it was in the early game. Now we're getting into true late game stand, and when you have a double AD carry comp getting towards that late game, you can't really afford to let any of these real big damage carries unchecked, because they can start turning it around onto the likes of your Gnar, who's not the tankiest person ever compared to this Scion, who, even though Ezreal does have all that armor shred, will still be a relevant frontline for the first part of the fight. And that means that this Lucian, who, okay, maybe didn't get the early game they wanted to, is still very relevant. The Kai'Sa becoming more relevant, and CGA have themselves a team fight to play around.
Crucial moments in the next 90 seconds. First Baron spawns in 30, then Infernal 1 minute after that. Both of these objectives could be crucial for these two teams. Potentially may even end up seeing a trade.
We might do. I can't imagine giving over Infernal Soul is on the cards for CGA. Ezreal Infernal Soul is one of the most terrifying AD carries in the game. You'll notice he's gone for a build without the mythic item. This is effectively all of the on-hit ability damage you can get for an Ezreal. If you hit with the ultimate, hit with the Q, every proc under the sun comes along with it, and someone like Milan, someone like Nation, someone like Kassin is effectively out of the fight.
Nahan might have to burn his teleport in just a moment because the Baron's been started up and it's already down below half health. This is going down so obscenely fast. Nap is here. We see Kassin is quite a way away, but already SHG zoned away from the Baron pit. Yet again, the fight
Alchemy?
Nahan has joined with the teleport as the Requiem comes down. The first kill goes over to Nahan as he manages to find one onto Alistair. Dasher has to go golden to stay away from Nap, but won't be alive for much longer. Appleman does manage to find the kill onto Alchemy, and yet again, Zenit still firing out mystic shots, finding kills. It is going to be, however, the killer instinct that this time finds its target, finds the shutdown. That's massive from Milan. Zenit is dead. SHG are dead. CGA will teleport to the bottom half of the map where they're going to be able to find themselves, at the very least, an inhibitor.
CGA have themselves the damage. Sure, the shockwave lands from Dasher, but the follow-up is not comprehensive enough. Nation gets out alive and is now alive to push down these structures with double AD carries. This could well be the end of the game. CGA might have found their lifeline.
25-second death time as Corporal, the last bull standing, gonna have to do what they can. Is gonna dash on forward, just trying to buy time for his team, trying to distract someone who may
try to clear the wave.
Try and do everything they can to stop these Nexus turrets falling. 10-second death time is still remaining. Headbutt pulverized.
He's cleared the wave.
The Corporal is dead. The wave is gone, and that might have been enough of a hit play from Corporal to save this game. CGA, however, just took a massive advantage. They're teleporting in. It's going to be SHG trying to find something. Dasher is going to go straight over a ward and is now caught between the Devil and the Deep Blue Sea. Nahan takes a massive shot from the Ezreal ultimate. Dasher trying to zone away, trying to keep his own life intact.
Oh, Dasher.
But they're not going to be there in time. Shockwave comes in. It's not enough. Dasher's dead. Dragon's going to go over to CGA as they equalize the Dragon score on top of everything else.
It's a late game dance of knives, and the Hawks, well, they're cut up pretty bad by CGA. Corporal gets 2 headbutt pull combos on the wave to clear it out. It was so close. What a hero, savoring Corporal Hawks. But going back into this last fight, again, it's at the Baron, that old Chestnut. Alchemy once again getting some huge teamfight ultimates on the Rel. Getting right into the backline, tying up Zenit, tying up Apperman, even Tussle, right? Kassin is free to just free hit, and that's not something you ever want to see if you're against a Karthus. Gets right onto Dasher. It doesn't matter that Apperman goes right over. Look at the damage he's also done to Zenit. Apperman tries to flash over to save his AD carry, but Milan gets right back into the thick of things and cleans up shop.
I was just watching there, and actually, Apperman going huge, flashing over and killing Kassim was great, but it left Zenit unprotected, more or less. And this was the first opportunity Milan actually had to go for the straight-out 1v1 against the Ezreal, winning it, getting a massive shutdown in the process. Suddenly has items on top of everything else that had been picked up. QSS is now on both the crucial ADC carries of CGA. This is a 5,000 gold lead for the team that was once 6,000 gold down in this matchup.
And now they have Infernal Soul Point tied up against the Hawks when they were 3-1. They got themselves the second. They got the Baron, so they get to push in for the next phase of the map. 2, we've got that Lucian heading up towards 100% crit if he does finish that Mercurial Scimitar. Got himself the Ionian Boots of Lucidity for extra cooldown reduction too. Importantly though, Ezreal just finished their mythic item as their very last item. That's going to be an extra 40 extra ability haste coming in from the completion of that item. Huge stuff coming from the Ezreal. Those Qs coming out that much more quickly.
The question is it too little, too late? Feels like it might be. CGA have got the bull. I don't know. I was going to say between the horns, but that's not where you want a bull. So right now, the bull is actually one of the few things that keeping SHG in this game. Let's see if Corporal can show up massive with a headbutt pulverize, maybe start taking this game for his team. The question is, will consistent damage being put out by Zenit be enough to stop the burst damage coming out from Kassin, coming out from Neon, coming out from Milan? Apperman gets absolutely obliterated, goes into the Guardian Angel as the Requiem comes down. The turret is going to die as we see. Noah will follow straight after. Tussle is completely caught out, tries to flash away, but Neon dashes in, finds himself the Light Slinger, is able to pick up a kill. A second inhibitor may fall, or sorry, a third inhibitor may fall, or we may just see the final Nexus turret coming under fire. Minions are coming in.
Zenit's still alive.
Down. Corporal is out of there. Zenit is alive no longer. The game is over, and CGA take the game as we predicted they would, Alex.
Absolutely no sweating at all. Oh boy, that was a team fighting performance from CGA. That was not a game which they should have found themselves so far behind in going into that mid game. Nevertheless, they did, but they managed to hang on. They managed to hang in there and around some crucial objective fights. CGA proved that they definitely don't want to be stuck at that bottom of the table.
Sadly, I think this result and the fashion that it came through is a real telling sign for the Hawks. The fact that you can't close out a game where you have that sort of lead, those sort of advantages, that's a bit of a yikes in my book. However, congratulations to CGA. They come out on top in this matchup and they put themselves even closer to their potential playoff berth.
They do, and I suppose with all that said and done, I need to bring MassSwan back into the conversation. To do that, what we typically do is we do head to a little post-game break. So what we'll do, just going to take a minute to ourselves to collect our thoughts. So please join us for that very, very soon.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the desk. Moss one, GreyHart, Nightmare over on the other side. Gentlemen, what a stellar game, first and foremost, to start us off.
Absolutely outstanding. You asked me which of the games over Super Week I was most looking forward to. I said this one. I wasn't disappointed.
This was honestly just a very slow burn. The first 7 minutes, nothing really happened. You guys were like excited to talk about rock music and films as well, and I was like, I'm gonna try and find up stats, and I'm like, Tussle has only played Skarner in season 8 and 9. It's like, oh, is this the game we're getting? No, because about 10 minutes in, there was an ace under the Hawks turret, but Crest Gaming Act gave them the ace, GreyHart. What went on there?
Well, I think it all starts with a really excellent flash impale, which brings that brings the Carthus more or less under turret range. Obviously, it's not going to be hit by the turret because it's already dead and it's using passive. However, this is the moment where CGA go, all right, we're going to take this fight and we're going to take it in this location. And I think I said it earlier on, it basically becomes a 6v5 because you've got the turret raining down shots,
Yeah.
and I believe it was I think it was probably onto the Scion, which just
Mm.
eats through the tank's health, and then yeah, it all just goes from bad to worse. And this is at a time when this team, by the way, are about 4,000 gold behind, so it's not like they're even taking this battle under an opposition turret while ahead or even level.
Yeah, that was the perplexing thing. The Hawks just kind of waiting for them, and CGA were just on the command of dive, 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 except they didn't realize they were behind. And a part of the map that they became behind on Nightmare is this bot lane.
Yeah, so again, we had a lot of questions about the bot lane. CGA coming into this game saying, all right, you've kind of been shoved around by most of the bot lanes in this league right now. And that became pretty apparent in the early game when nothing really happened in that bot lane and they still ended up about 15, 20 CS behind. Credit where it's due, though. Milan coin flipped a lot of this game, and a lot of that was kind of bad, ulting into Mega Nars. But also had some game-saving plays. Alchemy, much more visibly, had some game-saving plays.
So Nightmare, my LJL scouting ground boy, is he good? Is he good?
Half the time.
Good enough for me. Good enough for me. Bit of context. Oh, go for it. Go for it.
I was saying, I mean, good enough for the win in the end. He got the crucial moments. I think we're going to come to one of them very shortly. But Nightmare touching there on Alchemy, he did Edward and Alphonse proud as Full Metal Alchemy on that rel. It was definitely the sort of game we wanted to see.
I completely missed the whole Fullmetal Alchemist until you brought it up, and I was like, okay, cut the stream. It's over. We've peaked
we've
already.
Been outdone. That's it.
Yeah. Gentlemen, let's go on to one of the big defining moments of this game, and this is the first Baron fight. This is where the Hawks are going for the Baron. They're about 5 to 6k ahead at this point. They are definitively in the lead, GreyHart. And then there's a huge turn, and Crest Gaming Act won the fight.
I mean, I've said it before, I've said it again. Both these teams seem to like taking 6v5s. Baron's there, just shredding through the health bars. This time of the Hawks, CGA arrive at the right moment. I want to go back and watch the replay and see the exact health bar it was at, because I have a feeling that the Carthus is quite a way away still, and the Baron's going down low and probably could have been finished off, and then maybe a turn. Bye, Nightmare. Bye, Mera. And so... And so, yeah, all of a sudden, this fight, they do decide to take the fight. The Baron's still spitting out the venom, and this time it all goes in favor of CGA, and that's essentially where the game started to swing.
Yeah, the game was really turning around. That's that point, because I think just moments before, Blitzcrank-san had come on screen and gone, I'm with everybody on the Hawks now, and I was feeling a bit bad for our prediction there, GreyHart. I was like, ooh.
Never doubted it.
Never doubted it. Never doubted it. One more. Let's just have a quick check-in and see. Nightmare, are you still there, sir? Hello? Testing?
Definitely not.
He is very dead, so we might have to work something out. We might have to work something out for this second game. But ladies and gentlemen, before we do that, we've got a last moment. And GreyHart, let's just talk between ourselves for this one. As this was the moment that I was like, oh my god, my scouting grounds boy Milan is popping off in this team fight. But you brought up a really good point during the cast, and I think it was actually either just as we came off, around Appermen and that final Baron team fight, where thankfully both teams shared the Baron kind of taking damage from this time. They both went 6v6 in this one.
They did. And actually, as he's not here, I can give him a compliment. I have to shout out Nightmare on this one because actually it was him pointing out what Appman did in the previous fight around the Dragon Pit, where things went 3 for 2, where we saw Milan dashing in with the Killer Instinct, getting immediately bopped by the Gnar, giving a free kill over to Zenit. The exact same thing probably would have happened on the back of this Killer Instinct, except we'd just seen Appman jump over the wall to finish off Kassin, leaving Zenit completely exposed. And this time Milan, he coin flips and gets it right.
Absolutely, and you can check out that clip over on our Twitter channel, already highlighted and up there, ready for it. Congratulations over to the side of Crest Gaming Act, who pick up their 4th victory here. Commiserations over to the Hawks, but we're going to go over to a very quick break. When we return, we'll be bringing you coverage of the Fukuoka SoftBank Hawks facing off against V3 Esports. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
I'm back.